let's just say there's four dials to pick from. And in order to actually say that you've been pushed in that potential to 100 of what you're capable of, all dials need to be pulled at 10. Well, let's just say you pick a slightly less serious goal and you realize that two knobs were turned to 10 and the other two knobs were turned to 7 and 5. Well, I would say the most important thing to do is not go to another goal that tests the 10s, but rather go to a slightly different goal that tests literally the 5.
Welcome to the Testpiece podcast. This podcast is about all things high-level climbing, how to go from good to great. I'm your host, Joshua Horsley. I've been climbing for over 30 years. We recently updated our Patreon, and now you get exclusive content from the guests that you love. You get your episodes before everyone else, and they're ad-free. Try it out now at patreon.com/testpiece with a free 7-day trial. Okay, let's start the show.
Tim, my dude, so good to have you on again. How's it going, man?
Josh, what's up? I'm so grateful to be here. And Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. We had talked about this for months, and then I was kind of excited to have you come out as kind of like the first guest in 2026. I don't want to give all our secrets about when we're recording this exactly, but I pushed my editor, amazing guy Adam, to get this episode out quickly. So this should be, you are the first guest of 2026.
I'm honored. Thanks, Adam. Pushing it along.
Good to have you back, man. Longtime listeners will recognize you, know all about Tim, my dude, Timothy Kang, but they're also going to be disappointed that you are not in a closet, because that's where you used to do all your podcasting from.
Yeah, I know. I used to, I don't know. I think actually it was an echo thing. Like we just wanted pretty optimal audio. And Josh was like, closets were pretty, and I was living in Vegas in a house at the time and had a big closet, and people would comment because these things were recorded, but they didn't go on air. People were like, why do you have clothes hanging around? It's like, looks like Tim's in a closet. It's because I am in a closet.
It really does help with audio quality. You have less echo. You've got all that clothing to absorb it. And yeah, you're right. Back when we first recorded them, even though we did them in video, we didn't release the video for a long time. It was just audio. And I started trickling them out. So you can go on YouTube and see Tim in a closet spitting that wisdom from a closet in Vegas. That's a weird place for, amazing climbing knowledge to come from, but there you were, and you're back.
Yeah, no, I also appreciate being an early guest on the pod, and I still get recognized actually quite a bit. I would say for a long time, the most common recognition I would get out in public was from, you're the dude from the Testpiece pod, or you started the Testpiece pod. I'm like, you're on the Testpiece pod. I'm like, actually, all of that is that's Josh right now, and I'm not a part of that anymore. But
no, you are. You're here right now, dude. No, you are right, always a part of it, and I think that's hilarious that people would recognize you from it. I still feel like it's surprising when people recognize me from my voice. Like I will see people hear my voice and recognize me from my voice, versus you were in amazing climbing videos. I mean, you've been in a bunch of them, and dude, you've been putting out more content lately because you've been climbing hard. But you're one where you went to Bishop and did the 5 most terrifying, well, maybe not the most terrifying, 5 iconic classic highballs in Bishop. Like, I mean, dude, that's been viewed a lot. I was on YouTube and it still pops up sometimes. Like, they must know that it's like winter season. I've been going. They're like, do you want to watch your buddy Tim risk his life on really dope climbs in Bishop? And I said, yes, I do. So I figured they would recognize you from that. But, good to hear that Testpiece is making the rounds as well.
I think it's actually confusing. Like, I think maybe people kind of see me as like one person there, and then another person here, and then another person on my personal YouTube, and then, another person who was competing. Like, they're all different people to different groups of people in climbing, whereas, the Testpiece pod has like a subset of media consumers. But either way, I've at the pod, obviously, as, early contributor here.
Very, very, very early, very, very, very important part of it. It's funny, you talked about these different sides of your climbing and how people might view you. And this is something that was a theme for us really early on, is you're a coach, Tim. And that's a little foreshadowing because we're going to talk about you maybe doing some more coaching in the new year. You're also, or were also a route setter. You were a competitor, probably still. Did you compete at all in 2025? You ever get those?
A little bit,
bib on?
yeah. Yeah, I did the Battle of the Bay.
Okay.
I'm going to compete this year. For sure, I'm going to compete this year.
Okay, you're an excellent competitor. I mean, dude, you're even a World Cup competitor. You are also an extremely good outdoor climber. And something that we often talked about is how there's this like virtuous circle where if you climb, you learn climbing, you learn movement, you learn tactics, but then route setting helps you understand movement. And also I feel like appreciate climbing more. There's something about route setting that helped me just appreciate both climbing and outdoor climbing and how beautiful nature has made routes. And then coaching, there's like, then when you have to articulate and explain what you're doing to others, it really, well, it takes up a lot of time. So now your whole life becomes climbing, but that was something you always had, that was really important in our talks, is just that full, flywheel of and viewpoint of climbing. And so that's why we had such good conversations and why it's going to continue today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's funny, just on that note, like on the other side of the spectrum, I think, people who don't have climbing consume all, corners and aspects of their life. I think it's interesting to see how people consume it and people participate in it. And there's nothing wrong with not doing all of it. So it takes a lot of time. It doesn't really like reward you exactly the way that other parts of life might reward you. But it is interesting that, when people consume it their own way and then they see someone like me do it, it's almost like they don't recognize the circle. It's like when I coach, they're like, how do you know that? Like, what do you mean? How do I did this on purpose. It's like, how do you highball? It's like, well, again, I did all of this on purpose, like so that I could highball, so that I could coach, so that I could route. Well, route setting might be the one actually that you're describing, is like looking for more definitions, looking for more like picking apart the layers. It's like when you're a kid and you like open up the remote control, and you're like, oh, what's in this thing? Like, and you just open it apart. Like that's what route setting was to me. And then it kind of over time, of course, again, different people consume it in different ways. Like different opportunities given to me were like, hey, you're a route setter. You can put up grips. Like, can you put up challenges? I was like, oh, I didn't see it that way, but sure, I could try to do that for you. So it just depends on your perspective, I think, but wanted every perspective in the book.
When you first started route setting, did you have this feeling that it was, I don't want to say impossible, or I had this view. I was like, wow, they put the foot right where I need it. And this hand is right where I need it. And I had this idea when I first started route setting that it was going to be extremely difficult, and it's a beautiful craft, but even just basic route setting, I thought, how do they know where to put these feet? And then after a while you do it, and you're like, oh, that T-nut strip, I'm just going to move the foot up one, still goes. Like, it's something that it taught me was just how malleable climbing is, how many ways to solve a problem there is, how, it's not like an exact science where like the foot has to be here, maybe it sounds dumb in hindsight, but it's like, no, you can just step the foot up higher. And it just gave me again, appreciation for movement and how we solve things. I was going to say, I encourage everyone to route set, and I do, but this is one of the cool things about board climbing now and those LED lights, or those LED standardized boards, is that you kind of do get to route set in a way that you don't even have to pick holds or be granted the, allowance by the gym to, here's a wrench. Good luck.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think route setting, I have two answers to kind of what you're bringing up. One, I don't think route setting is that complicated in the way that like spray walling or, making up a boulder, or like, going out to a building and just being like, oh, should we just go up? Like, I think just spraying holes on the wall is something I've always wanted to do. And we started off really early on. A good buddy of mine had a garage wall, and we just couldn't help but just see, put up sims that we saw, in the past, like just grab new holds and try to move different ways. It didn't matter what was going up. So that was really easy. And I really wanted to do that in the gym. What was really difficult is kind of something else you're bringing up, which are the constraints. And I think a lot of route setters struggle with this, which is, again, it's not that hard to just put up something that might be fun. What's hard is to find ways to break it and then fix it. Like if you can break some beta to make something easier or harder, or like, if it just so happens that your boulders or your movement is easier for someone shorter or easier for someone taller, you got to fix that. Like you got to find ways to make all the options, even for the grade that you're saying. And then if you have T-nut issues, which a lot of gyms don't nowadays, but certain gyms really did, like all the movements in all the planet granites in the bay have this issue. It's actually so funny, dude. I climbed a couple of weeks ago at PGSF.
Woo!
I know it's movement. We're calling it PG, all right? I climbed at PGSF in the Presidio, which is where Josh used to set.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I've been climbing whenever I come to visit. I'm dating somebody now in the base, and now I'm coming quite a bit more often. But when I go down to the South Bay, there's like a totally different feel to those gyms. But for whatever reason, we decided on like a chiller day just to go to PGSF. It was raining. It was such a good mood. And like, I don't know, as soon as I walked in, it was super nostalgic. And immediately I saw Cody and Mick. And I was like, oh, this is like such a nostalgic blast. And we got to talk. Amazing. Damien's still sitting there, and all of the climbing was a blast. It was all like, it just warped me back 10 years. And I was like, wow, this stuff is so good. And it's like, to your point, they had learned their constraints so well that whatever they wanted to set, they're like, oh, I know how to set this grade. And they're one of the only gyms, I actually think one of the only gyms I've climbed at recently that have a very different stylistic feel. Like I felt like it was Mick. Mick was just like putting up all these like crazy, you know, it felt like I was climbing on gritstone or something, like on a lot of the boulders. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. This is so cool.
Well, Mick is in fact from England, and I set under him. He was a foreman at one point, and his setting style is so like foot first thinking. Like I like really struggled to mimic it. It's always like, okay, I have this grip, and then you look at your holds, you're like, this would be the next hold that looks cool for this angle. It's like, from the same set, but maybe it's a little more in cut because it's steeper. And you're like, of course I'm going to then hold that hold, look where it's going to be. And Mick would like put on feet first, it seemed like, or if I'm making that up, it just, when I would climb his boulders or routes, it was so obvious that he was thinking with his feet more than his hands, or at least in comparison to how I would climb and set. And so, yeah, big shout out to that. Is a OG crew. And actually, I just want to say for the people I had to set under, like Moses and Mick and Brett, and when I said that I just would switch to the other T-nut, I know I was supposed to use, the T-wrench. Wait, no, not the T-wrench. What's the thing that like redoes the T-nut? It like cuts the new.
Damn, we haven't picked up a drill in a minute.
So basically, for all those listening, T-nuts will get stripped. You will put in a bolt, and you will cross thread it, and it will just basically ruin the threads of the T-nut. And that's the hole in the wall that you put holds into. So then there's a tool that basically recarves out the T-nut so that it works again, but it's a pain in the ass. So I just didn't do it. I'm just lazy. And so sorry to all those people I was working under. I was too lazy. But yeah, good shout out, good nostalgia. Love those gyms. God, just love good setting. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. In some ways, it's what makes you a good climber. It's, it's the challenge that's presented in front of you. It's an unsung role, both for route setters and I feel like as a coach, putting people into those situations and seeing how they handle them. If you don't have a situation to put them in to help them grow, maybe there's nothing to do. Like you got to put them in those situations, and that's route setting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, to answer your question, I don't think route setting is that difficult to start, but it's an infinite ceiling, and people like Mick definitely prove that. It's just, you can just be really, 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 really good at it. When I see a good boulder, I can appreciate it, but I don't think I have the intention and the skills behind the intention to make it happen consistently, especially at every grade, especially with those constraints. Like that gym does not seem, well, I've sat at that gym, and it's not as difficult as Sunnyvale, gotta say, but it's not as easy as like a new Waltopia wall. That's for sure.
Things have changed. And on that note, you are not in a closet in Las Vegas. You moved to Colorado. And yeah, tell me about the whole Colorado scene compared to, well, it could be the Bay Area. It could be Las Vegas. I mean, you lived in Salt Lake before that. Those are all the Meccas. You have lived in all the Meccas. What's the Colorado scene like? I don't know if you want to share why you moved to Colorado. I don't know if I actually know. Do I know?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give a little, scope into my chapters of life. I don't remember the last time we talked was, but
it's only been like a month or two, dude. I don't know. Oh, you mean on the pod?
Well, I mean on the pod.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so I had a full-time job in Vegas. My Vegas chapter was a couple of years after my Salt Lake chapter, which mostly my life was spent in the Bay Area. But during COVID, I moved to Salt Lake, tried to compete and, just make it. I started online coaching then. And then I was dating somebody and we were moving pretty quickly. We bought a house together in Vegas. And then that relationship was going south pretty badly. I got injured, like pretty bad injuries, got really unpsyched. This was all hovering the time I did that Focus Bishop Highball project. So like things were going really well, but then also like that was pretty intense. Wanted some time off. And with the knee injury that took me many months to heal, I got offered a full-time job. So I was just like not really sure what I was going to do with climbing at that point. And so I was working not in the climbing industry. I was working in real estate. And that was kind of potentially turning into other business. Wasn't that psyched on that. Wasn't psyched, yada, yada, wasn't psyched. I was like, all right, I need to shift in what I'm doing and how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. So I would say it was hard, but I'm very happy I lost a lot of those chapters and like had to leave them behind. My best friend, Brennan Robinson, who has been in my climbing life since it started.
And Testpiece. He's been part of Testpiece too. Shout out Brennan.
Shout out Brennan, as always, the GOAT.
Heal up his knee too. Just want to send him some healing vibes. You're talking about your knee.
That's
Poor
true.
Brennan has a busted knee for the second time, but let's not dwell on that.
But he's killing it.
Healing vibes. Shout out Brennan again. Shout out healing vibes to him too.
He's killing it. He's already climbing. He's crushing. He's
good.
Super psyched. Like he made me work out as soon as I got back to his place. Like he's like, dude, check out this workout I'm doing. He's just going ham. And he looks really strong. But he moved to Colorado in Golden, and he works for Friction Labs. He's the athlete manager for them. And it's a good gig. Like he does athlete management, but also a bunch of marketing help. He does a bunch of stuff for that company. That company's rock solid. They're awesome people. And he had a pretty decent spot, was making decent income. He was like, yo, just live with me, just reset, get back into climbing. That's a true friend. And that was 5 months ago. And so just packed up all my stuff. I did 3 back and forth trips from Vegas to Colorado in my Honda Accord. That poor thing has over 200,000 miles on it now. It's still running. And then, it was a hard transition. But when I got back, I wasn't climbing very much right before that, even though I did Trieste earlier in 2025. After that, I think falling apart again. It was just hard. It was a bunch of like back and forth obstacles mentally. And so I was like able to climb very hard, but I physically wasn't very consistent. And so I was picking up a lot of tendonitis. That's not the best thing for psych. But then with that, it was like, all right, I have no other things I want to do. Like I kind of took a step back and was like, what do I really want to do before I'm going to turn 27 this year?
Oh my gosh. Ancient, dude. It's over.
But for like the context of, getting your absolute peak, you just know there are years in your life where you're like, all right, if I don't take it seriously now, and if you didn't take it seriously before that, can you take it seriously now? These are really hard questions to ask yourself, and then like have the foresight to put in the work early so that you can have those questions answered later in your life, right? And then if you haven't done that, then you're like, all right, got to put up the shoes and like, it's not going to be my chapter. I don't want to do that. I didn't really want to do that. So I was like, well, I still have the opportunity to try to put in some miles now and, ask myself other questions that I want to have in a couple of years and still have it be feasible for myself. And being in Colorado, I think I saw a lot of opportunity that, leaks in my resume, I think holes in my resume that I hadn't really touched before. How those would kind of build for other things that I wanted on my resume way higher up on the scale, I think it's just kind of interesting to me. I called my Black Diamond athlete manager and he knew I was like working a full-time job. He knew I was like maybe not going to be a pro climber anymore. And I called him. I was like, hey man, like I'm done. I'm empty. I'm nothing. I'm weak, but I'm psyched. And he was like, hell yeah. He's like, come to Tahoe. We have the athlete summit in like 2 months. And he was like, if you want to make a big trip out of it, we'll help you out and, just stay there as long as you want and climb. And I was like, dude, yeah, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And so I trained really hard, luckily didn't get injured again, got really psyched and had an amazing 2 months out in California. And then I got back like a month ago And I've just kind of been just started a new relationship. So I've been kind of back and forth, and, she's a climber. So we've been climbing a lot, but yeah, otherwise it's been.
Okay, Tim, I got a lot of questions for all that. It was a successful trip to Tahoe, by the way. We'll definitely get into that little V14 FA you did of a killer line in what's that area called again? I can't remember. Lost World. Lost World. Dope area. So many good things out there.
Amazing.
And that really is arguably one of the best lines. If you walk around there, it's definitely like a showstopper. Like, what is that? So good job on that. We'll get into that more. So you moved to Colorado and you left a full-time job, not in the climbing industry. And you said something about like lost chapters, which I don't like you saying that in the sense that, I mean, I've just watched you and talked to you and heard you grow through all those chapters. And I don't know, anyone who thinks life is just like simple and like, oh, I just did this and I went to the next. It's like you learn your lessons and it's not lost. It's next chapter, not lost. And something that we were talking about before we kind of hopped in was, I just love that you take these steps back and ask yourself, what do I really want? Like, what do I really want to do? And, you then go for it. Because I remember when you worked that normal job, you went in pretty deep, dude. You were working a lot. And we were doing the podcast sometimes, and you would work a full day, do a podcast, go climbing. And it still blows me away that you did Trieste while you're working a full-time job. That is a no joke boulder. I mean, it's hard to boulder at that. It's hard to do anything at a high level when you're also working a really tough job, when you're still on that steep learning curve too, because you were only in there for a year or two. Okay. You're now back in climbing and you are looking to be the best climber you can be. What does that mean? Does that mean, oh, I want to win a World Cup? Does it mean I want to climb a hard boulder outside? Like, just what does that mean to you?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I do think about this quite a bit. And you said something a little bit earlier, which I just kind of want to address, where, you're saying that I have this kind of like step back moment quite a bit and ask like what is the best thing to do. And it's funny because like I don't see it that way. Although I'm happy with what I've done with my opportunities to think. But I think having opportunities to think means there's been like major obstacles and major setbacks, which I think there's two choices, right? Like you have a major obstacle, a major setback, a major change in pace, and you can sit there and sulk, which I definitely have done. So it's not to say that like you shouldn't always do that. But a lot of the time I'll be like, all right, like if I want X, what is there to do? And as long as there's like an acknowledgement that you have this choice to sit and think differently and absorb what just happened to you or what you just, decided to do in the context of what was happening and learn off of it and make maybe more informed choices moving forward and, have different mistakes in front of you in the future or different success, then I think, things are purposeful. At least things are purposeful. And I think the reason why I use that term lost chapters is not because everything's a waste, but I don't like having times in my life where things aren't so purposeful. Like whether I make mistakes or not is not so much of a big deal for me, but I'd really rather, again, if I choose to not do much and there's like a purpose behind it, that's okay. And I'll see the outcomes and, I will have deserved them. But when I see different outcomes that I'm not really happy with and I didn't really know why, and I didn't put that much purpose into any sort of thing that I was doing anyway, or intention into what I was doing, I kind of deserve that. And, I feel like I just wanted that time to be like, all right, well, that's what happens when I don't put very much into. And I also felt like that was not a thing that I had usually done when I was younger. And I always felt like I had just gone through a lot of different episodes in life by the time I was already like 11. And so like by the time I moved to the Bay and I found climbing, I was like, wow, this is the time now where like everything I've wanted to do intentionally, I can start doing it here. And so to answer your question, like what are my goals? Well, the goals that I had when I was younger were always very, there was no ceiling. It was just like, just do that. You have all the time in the world. You have all the effort in the world. Let's just put it in. And what comes out the other side is probably something you're going to be happy with. Well, I've learned a lot since then. I've tried a lot of things. I've accomplished things that I've wanted to accomplish. And I've, also seen things that maybe don't really correlate to the effort that you put in. And that's also pretty interesting. And I guess what I'm trying to say is kind of related to another conversation we were having where I'm running out of time to do all of the things that I want to do. So there is a ceiling. And so a lot of what I've learned is well, on another track, there's going to be regret that I have if I don't do certain things in my life with the things that I care about, the things that I know how to do, things that maybe I feel like I should do that maybe other people can't do. And just kind of combining that into a track of like, what do I want to do before I regret it? And what do I need to do to make sure that happens so that I get it done? And that takes precision, control, and consistency and effort. And I think that word control to me, I try to dig into. I'm like, well, how do I like actually control these things? And I teach myself climbing in the same way where, again, I don't want to have the 13-year-old Tim approach where it's like, just put in a ton of effort and see what sticks. Because I think in climbing, I've learned that doesn't always show me all of the answers. It shows me some answers, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But what I'm trying to do in my life right now is push limits in guidelines. And so it's not boundaries, but guidelines. Like I'm not allowed to push any further beyond this strict rule that I've created for myself. It's almost like doing a lock off. And I'm like, well, I know I need to do this big move, but my foot needs to stay. And so the more I generate, I'm going to get more distance. It's like, no, you know that if you generate too much, the foot's going to come off. So it's like in the context of this foot not coming off, how much can I generate? And I think I try to think about all my goals in the same way. And so that gives me a lot more clarity for the answers. Like I could just say I want to be in the Olympics, but it's like, does that answer the itch that I have here? Like, does it actually answer that itch? You know, and so like those are my guidelines. Like there's like an itch that I have and it's related to regret. What would I wake up at 50 years old? And like, I must have said this on the pod before. Like what do I look at from 50 years old? I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't do that. Like, why didn't I do that? And if it's actually something that was in my control, there's no reason why I shouldn't be doing that today or doing something that helps me do it.
The two things that are really interesting that stick out to me there is you basically said that you have these moments of stepping back or reflection because of big events that aren't always positive. And I think that's interesting that like you recognize that there's these turning points and then you confront them, where I feel like a lot of people just go back to routine or habit and kind of try to avoid them. And, you know, and also something I know and listeners will know too, like, it's not like it was always destined that you would be a great climber. It was, you chose that and, you know, chose it because of certain things. Like I remember a story where you didn't do well at comps. Like, it's not like you were a superstar at comps when you were 11 or 12 and people around you were doing better. And you were like, yeah, but I actually do want to dive in. Like, should I just quit or should I dive in and go deeper? And so I think that's a really interesting thing that you do, is you take these pivotal moments and then reassess and move forward. And then I want to just ask even more granularly than, since you aren't 13 where you just say, I'm just going to try hard and see what happens, you know, like wish myself luck. You just kind of jokingly, you know, poked about the Olympics, but yeah, what are you at this moment looking to do in your climbing and why? You know, like, cause I understand this whole not living with regrets. I don't know if I'm perfect in that, but I'm better than a lot of other people my age, where I see a lot of people who are not happy and who just kind of followed, I call it the yellow brick road. It's like you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job. And a lot of them now at my age with kids are saying like, I wish I had taken more risks, or I wish I just had tried something instead of just doing whatever was in front of me. And so, you know, now at your age, you don't want to have those regrets. Yeah. How are you thinking about what that goal is? And this is all, you haven't told me, like, you know, I don't know this before, like, you know, what area of climbing are you going to dive into, or what do you want to make sure you don't regret in hindsight when it comes to your athletic career?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. It's the money question, right? It's like, what do you want to do and what should you do? But also you kind of went quickly over this question, but why? And I think the why is actually way more important. And so I guess I'll dig into that a little bit more. And it's the same why, I think, why I coach, why I like still coaching, and like why I want to make media, like why I want to make maybe future climbing business. Maybe if opportunities lie there and I have the effort and time, after not putting it into things just that are curious to me. But I'm interested in climbing. It's just the easiest way I can say it. It's not something that is just satisfying to me just to do it. It's not actually. Like if it was, I wouldn't have climbed past like V10. Like the sole movement of climbing to me is like enough. Past V10, it's pretty uncomfortable, and it takes a lot of training. It just takes a lot of discomfort tolerance. And I think that's another part of life that's really interesting and should do it for life. But for climbing, for the sole purpose of climbing, just the movement of it, there's like, I could just climb to V10 and have like fun the rest of my life. So I don't climb for fun. Well, okay, we check that box. But what's interesting to me is I'm a researcher. Like I'm experimenting and I'm trying to study it. And the only way I can do that is to have some hypotheses, systems, and processes that like actually determine my understanding of mastery. And I think if you ask yourself, like, what does that mean for me to dive into mastery here? Well, there are a lot of other sports that actually define this, but ours hasn't really yet. You have people who are pushing the limits, certain limits, vectors of limits in climbing. But does that mean that they're mastering it? It's a good question any listener should ask themselves. If you're watching somebody climb V17 or V18 or 515D, have they mastered the sport? Or have they just like done a really, really excellent job in what they're really excellent at? But is that what mastery means? And so to me in my life, I just want to figure out like whether I become super excellent at some vectors that apply to some aspects of mastery. I don't really care about that as much. I've learned that. And so it's been kind of limiting to me in some ways. But again, the goals that I want to have should be all around looking for things that answer this question of, is this in the line of looking for mastery? And that's why I'm saying the goals, it's not just my climbing performance goals, which are there for sure. I have climbing performance goals that are in line where it's like, if I get my body to do this, if I get my mind to be able to do this, I'll probably have understood something a little bit more about what it takes for mastery. That's one really important thing to me. But then also in coaching, like we might talk about this later, but something that's equally important to me in coaching, and the reason why I stopped coaching for many years, I kind of say it was burning me out, but it wasn't really burning me out. I felt like I was wasting my time because I was like working with one person at a time, where I felt like I wanted to just like spray a bunch of information that I think is like generally conceptually helpful for people, no matter what level you're at, just to like find holes or find reasons why you're successful. You don't want to just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and be like, oh, that sticks. And then like realize it's a motion where you're like, oh, wow, that motion makes things stick more often. You kind of want to understand all the layers of what's happening and like develop some control around it. And so I think in the performance realm, just to like answer your question there's limits in my mind at times where it's like, if I want to try 100% right now, what does that mean? And I think I just want to stretch that a little bit more. Some people just stretch a muscle, like a physical muscle, where it's like, oh, if I grow this muscle and I'm able to do that 5 more one arms this year, like that's satisfying to them. But that's not enough. It's like, I need to do that. And in the context of my guidelines, which actually apply to what I think is better climbing. And another thing that we were talking about earlier, which is I want to ask more questions. What is better climbing? I want to answer more of those questions. Like, what actually is better climbing? And sometimes you have to put yourself in situations that are risky. Sometimes you have to put yourself in situations that are hard. So the goals that I have, I want to put myself in more situations that are just difficult, but maybe aren't an itch that I've itched yet, or aren't a question that I haven't scratched yet. So I'm going to be highballing and I'm going to be climbing harder.
Oh my. Man. So mastery is a theme that we talk about a lot. Like it's always something that comes up, and it's something that's always been really unique about your approach compared to others, in my opinion, or just from what I've seen. And it's helped me a lot. There's a lot of things that you've pointed out that I was more probably physically oriented, or like, just like, how do I get stronger to do this thing? Like definitely thought about like more physical. The quote that I have from you in my head often is F your feelings. I won't swear. And it's, that was Tim basically telling me, like, if you get a hold and it doesn't feel good, well, you still do the right technique and you still put your body in the right position. Maybe even you embrace even more. Or just because it doesn't feel good doesn't mean you shouldn't continue to move. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel. That's not exactly what the mastery of something is. It's doing the things are required to be the best at what you do.
So I just wanted to echo that. It's the other thing it really makes me think of is that when I look back on my climbing, I think about the peak moments of my climbing. They typically aren't associated with grades. They have to be a sufficient grade so that the challenge is there. But then there's a conglomerate of factors. It can be fear. It can be time pressure. It can be self-belief or lack thereof. It can be physical. And, those specific routes could be indoors, could be outdoors, could be both. Doesn't matter. It all comes together in this moment where it takes everything out of me to get up that climb. And then when you come out on top, like that to me is this pursuit of mastery and of climbing. And it's something that you kind of pointed out there earlier, where it's like, some people are really driven just to climb that grade. And then of course I'm driven to climb as hard a grade as possible. I mean, of course, like who is it? It'd be a lie to say that doesn't hold some weight. But I really think that when people are addicted to climbing, probably listening to a podcast like Testpiece, it's those moments where it all comes together and you feel a sense of, I don't know if mastery is the right word because it may be at a lower grade, but something that draws upon all of your abilities rather than just like, look, I dead hanged this 6 mil. Like, because if that's all it was, like, why aren't we just weightlifting? And so, I wanted to point out that little difference of when I hear you say mastery, why, like, I think it's something I chase, and why maybe it's not as fun to chase just a grade. I think you miss something. It's even just how it feels,
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, and we'll talk about this later too, because I know you have some questions around like my coaching approach. But what you're talking about when you get a moment where you draw from everything, I think that's what people want, period. And it's what climbing offers. And something that's missing nowadays is feedback on, okay, you've drawn from everything. Okay, first of all, can you do that? And it's like, how many times in a session or an outdoor project experience do you actually do that? And so for me, a lot of it was like, develop the skills and the mindset and the confidence to be able to do that as many times as possible, no matter what session it is. Okay, we check that box. And some people just never check that box or check it literally once per session, once per week. So that's how many times you're going to reference your ability. Okay. Well, once I reference my ability, where am I in relation to mastery? And that's where the questions become really difficult, where it's like, you said something about, and I still think in the same way, where it's like, okay, F your feelings, do what's right. What's right? Like, what's right? It's so hard because you're like, well, is it what's more right to my body right now? Well, that's one way to answer the question. Another way to question is, if I trained for 2 years, all of these things that I think are more right for mastery and climbing, then what would be right? And so it's like, F those feelings too. Let's just do what we need to do for 2 years to get to that level. That's what climbing really is to me, where it's like, do I need to do long-term things now? And do the feelings of success and failure matter at all today in these sessions, in this category of things that I'm working on? Okay, it's very complicated, I know. But I think where this turns into for me in the long term for like major goals, the reason why I have like an interest in, for example, like some highballs. Like right now I have one particular interest in one particular highball. And then like going to Tahoe was a big eye opener for me because I was like, wow, there's like so many other climbing test pieces that I really want to try and projects that are like super interesting, fascinating to see. Like, could I be the one to do this one? I think that's like a huge question that people chasing mastery ask themselves. Could I be the one though? Like with my interpretation, could I do this first? Highballing has been a very interesting way for me to pick at layers that most experiences in climbing don't demand you to pick at. And again, I want, like you're saying, just like everybody else wants in climbing, I believe, to have experiences where I have to draw from everything. And then assuming my ability that I've worked on is good enough, I'm at the top. I get from the bottom, I do the moves, and I get to the top. And it's not just doing the moves, but it's feeling right. It's feeling right at the moments that are difficult to make the right choices. Because there's always choices you can make, conscious or unconscious. And you have to make both in climbing, really. In perfect flow, it's not always unconscious decisions. Sometimes it's a conscious decision to think unconsciously, right? There's a lot of steps there. And when you're highballing, I think there's elements of fear, confidence. The mental side of it's tested in a way that almost nothing else tests you in. And to say that that's not an aspect of where you should draw from to test abilities in climbing is just like so insane. It's just like so disingenuous to what our sport actually is. And so I don't condone it. Like, I think that the issue is that, like, I really don't want people to do it, because if you don't do it fully, like the way we're talking about it now, first of all, it's like just really simply not that worth it. Like, it doesn't really give you anything in return. And so you really should only risk the amount of risk that it calls for if you're that interested in looking for those answers, or just seeing the outcomes, you know, because you're researching.
So I'm going to maybe add a nuance, or I don't even know, maybe this is pushback on that, where, so yeah, I like having danger in climbing. Period. I don't know. It's part and parcel to the sport. I did a pod with Alex Honnold. I don't know if you listened to that one, but we talked about, and I somehow recommended people like on-site free solo LCAP, which is, you definitely shouldn't do that. That would be very, very dangerous and dumb. But when you look at the history of our sport, there's risk involved. You know, whether you talk about alpine climbing, mountaineering, you know, for a long time, falling just wasn't part of the sport. It was like the leader did not fall. They had a rope tied around their waist and they did not fall, just period. So I think that that mental game that we deal with is an important part of the sport. But where I would add a little nuance there is that I have done things that are objectively dangerous and I was scared of, that you have done and been like, I will just chuck laps on this and it's no big deal. And same thing, like Honnold may say that about some of the stuff you've done. Actually, I don't know that, but I'll just put that out there. And what my point is that to me, it's all about tackling that fear. So for some people, it could be, I mean, still for me sometimes, because gyms like can get really tall. It's like making a committing move at the top on like a sloper that you feel like is going to blow, and like understanding the situation and then making the conscious effort to say, F your feelings, I'm going to do the right technique. Or, you know, it could even be like you're down low, but you have put like a heel toe cam in that, like, you're scared that it will not come out. And you have that moment where you go, this may not come out. I may get hurt, but instead of thinking about that, I'm going to do the move as best as I can, and we'll see how I come out the other side. It's just this switch that you go through where you take your mind away from the what if and you commit to the present and do your best. And so I just think that when we talk about highballing or that mental, you know, side of things and how that integrates into mastery and the thing, I think that there may be levels and you have to meet yourself where it's appropriate. Like, don't go to, you know, a 50-foot highball and just be like, well, now I'm finally highballing. It's like, it's who you are at that moment, and don't worry so much about if someone looking is like, no, that wasn't risky. Like, you were fine, you know, like you got to know how you feel.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing you're talking about, where you're explaining what's supposed to happen when encountering fear relative to the techniques that you know. So if you don't know how to actually perform and explain to somebody who's never climbed before how to perform this V6 rockover move, or this, like, you know, V4, you know, heel hook or whatever crossover thing, and hold that tension while you do it, and then you suddenly raise yourself 20 feet in the air, you know, you can't see the pads really properly anymore. Like, whoa, what do I do? That feeling, if I call it heat. So when I coach, or when I talk about these concepts, I call it heat. And that heat rises and the noise rises, right? And it's like, well, then can you do what you said you're supposed to do? What you know you're supposed to do, can you do that? And I think the thing that you're talking about that I agree with, but what I just want to shed a little bit more light to, is that these things are exponential relative to the technical requirement, also relative to your IQ, relative to what you understand in climbing. And so I think the thing that's interesting to me is, like, how close can we get to our limits, where as that heat rises and the exponential feeling of the reactions, the actual just unhinged reactions of like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, what the heck? Like, I know, because if I do that and this happens instead, dude, this is going to be F, you know? And it's like, well, go back to the first thing, which is, what am I supposed to do? And are you still able to answer that question? And I think, I want to know what it feels like in other people's heads, especially Honnold's. Like, so I was thinking about this the other day. Bouldering, when you're thinking about like what tests climbing the most, because Sean Bailey just hopped on the pod, or you released a bunch of like clips recently about what Sean Bailey was saying.
That was like a 2 years old one, but it was good. It was a good one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, he was dropping in those bits too, like he thinks sport climbing, and I 100% agree with this. Sport climbing is just like leaps and bounds from what the limit of human potential is, right? And so what's bouldering? Because like it feels like bouldering is sort of getting more towards that limit. Singular movements in bouldering are getting closer and closer to like what the limits are. You can stack a bunch of really difficult moves and then get closer to what roots are. And so like when you're looking at singular movements, the technical and physical requirement to be able to perform a move, then you combine the heat and the fear and the reaction. Can you perform the limits? Like it's mixing all of those things. It's not just the technical component. It's not just the physical component. It's not just the fear component. It's what happens when you mix all three. It's not less interesting to me to just like put a little bit of spice or a medium amount of spice and do a million moves. What's really interesting to me is do the hardest move you can do physically and technically with a lot of heat and just see like, all right, well, can we perform that one move like with a lot of risk? Because that's what bouldering is. Like bouldering is, well, I know I could do a 513, and I'm not dissing sport climbing. I love sport climbing. I might like sport climbing more than I like bouldering. I just think it's very fascinating in terms of research to research bouldering right now. Because it feels like we're closer to the limit of like finding out what's possible. And so it's like, what is the technical component? Because most people can't perform the physical components at the limit. Like it just takes so much time and so much, morphology, I think, to perform those. People can do those. So it's like in the context, if I plug in Adam Shahar body right now, what could he do technically? Like what should he do technically optimally? If I plug in Noah Wheeler body right now, like what should he do technically? That's kind of how I interpret technique. And then if I throw in a bunch of fear, what can Noah with the perfect technique do when he's super, super, super scared? And it's like, well, I think the grades go down quite far.
Okay, we're way out in left field, and I'm going to go just even further because to me, this is why I like climbing. This is why I like sports. This is why I think it's cool that you are trying to achieve the most you can achieve while you still can, or that you're even just seeking mastery, that, you're making these choices. It's because what you're talking about is performing in the moment and meeting challenges. And, to me, this is what life is kind of about. Like it's, you have these moments. Of course, you need to practice day in and day out to meet whatever challenge life brings you. But sometimes you have wild moments. And, those are the ones I remember in climbing. You remember them in life. And sometimes they lead to massive regrets. It's like, did I stand up and do my best? Because if you really stand up and do your best, you often don't feel bad about things. Even if they don't go how you wish they would. You said, I stood up. I tried to meet the moment. I tried to do perfect technique. And with all my body, I really put all I had into it. And I still fell and got hurt or whatever. And my dad used to have this saying where, I'm sure he took this from someone, but he would talk about people or guys that you wanted in the foxhole with you. So this is, I don't know, my dad was in like the Vietnam era, and, his parents were in World War II, and there was World War I talk. And so, the foxhole is like, you're in a war and you're sitting in the trench with your buddy leaning up against each other's back. And if someone comes at you, some people are going to freeze. Some people are going to turn tail and run, and some people aren't. And it's like, who do you want to be in that moment? Like when the heat is up, when things are hard, when things are scary, it's just like, who do you want to be? And I think that's one of the reasons why we do sports, why we do climbing, is because we want to know what we're made of. And, if you don't go out there and practice and confront the unknown and fear, then you don't know what you're made of. And I feel like that always eats at you a little bit. And, again, this is why I tried to scale it down to it doesn't have to be like life threatening. It's this repeated vote to yourself, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, that when things go this way, I show up in a good way. I don't turn tail and run. I show up in the way I want to. Again, maybe it doesn't turn out how you wanted to, but you know what kind of person you are. And so that's why I applaud the seeking of mastery, of reaching for it while you still can,
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's a great analogy that your dad's bringing up. It's just, I was thinking while you were saying that, like, why don't I bring this up all of the time when I coach? Because I don't. It's like, most people don't actually want that. Like most people are fascinated by it in sport, I think, in observation if other people are doing it. But most people themselves, I think, know they're not going to do that. Therefore, don't want to be tested. Like I don't really push the ego of all my clients that I work with because I don't think that's what they ask for. Like I think they just want to grow a little bit and get a little bit of heat exposure because they have way more important things in their lives I think they want to do. Or they're curious, like, well, what happens if you do push me? You know, like, what does that actually feel like? But there are a select few, namely one younger client that I work with, where sometimes he'll just like have an attempt where deep in it, he's texting me all this analysis. I'm like, dude, I gotta hop on the phone with you. Like, let's hop in this session. And I watch her try. I'm like, all right, give me your best. It's like, all right, tell me what you're going to do. Tell me the plan. Tell me what you're going to think about. Tell me all the moments that are going to cause you trouble and then what your plan is with the trouble. Just tell me, because that's what you do. That's how you actually give consistent high level output all the time. You plan for all this stuff and you actually say the plan. You've practiced already. So I trust you can do it. And then it's an accountability thing. It's just an accountability thing. Like, did you actually do what you said you were going to do that you've practiced for? And sometimes he does it. Sometimes he doesn't. Right. And like when I don't see it enough, I ask him like, all right, if I offered you $100,000 right now, briefcase is open to do this move the next try, would your try be different than what you were about to just give me? And it's always yes. Why is this answer always yes? Like if you just got to envision it yourself. You're in the gym and you're giving a try and then all of a sudden someone just genie pops out, boom, 100K right now, or for whatever amount of money is meaningful to you, $100 million. Bang, right now, next try. You give me your best effort, right? And we pick a climb that only your best effort, maximum, with the best technique, if you give 100%, you'll be able to do. Boom, first try, next try, right now. Why don't we always climb like that? Why? And I can't always climb like that. I need moments. That's what, going back to like the goals question, like I need moments that actually demand that of me because I can't manufacture this moment. It doesn't matter that much to me in the gym. It doesn't. Now, I know elements and little tricks to try to invite a little bit more of it in different aspects. But to have those moments, so many things have to come together. And it's not money. There's like, to me, it's not actually money. Not anymore. Like not the climbing. Not that I've been offered a bunch of money to do singular movements, which would be awesome. But I actually don't think that would get me as much as like, it's like the full family vibe thing, dude. Like watching Harry Potter, over the holidays and you're like, oh, that feels so good. Like that's what climbing feels like to me at the highest level. Like,
wait, I don't get that. You gotta explain the Harry Potter vibes a little better. Yeah.
It's like when the Grinch goes on, you're like, wow, like I feel like a kid again. Like I feel, but imagine if you just watched your favorite holiday movie, but you were missing the cookies and warm milk right next to you. It's like you need all that, and you need you need the whole experience. Like that's what you want. If I want this full.
Do you think that? So you said that not everyone you think is looking for, that whole moment of mastery and have some like danger mixed in, or that whole gamut of emotions that then come through, and that some people aren't looking for that. I think they are, and I think they mistake grades for that. I think they think that climbing harder, like they're like, oh, if I climb V10, that's what it is. And I think they get confused there, where grades represent difficulty, but they're not actually, like, if you become a V15 climber, I don't think it guarantees that you had the experiences that you were really looking for. I think it's more likely because typically V15 climbers will have done it for decades and have explored all the different disciplines and heights and rock types and sport climbing, trad climbing. They've had those moments, and I think that is typically what they're actually seeking out. But I think people conflate the two. They think that it's the grade.
It's interesting. I think I agree with something that you're saying, which is that it is conflated with something. People's interpretation of like, getting into heat, seeing if they have the choices or the abilities to make the choices that are supposed to be made in heat. And, they want to get that feeling and that comparison and see. I do agree. I actually think you're right, where people do actually want that. Some people definitely mistaken it for the great experience, but I think people mistaken it for all sorts of different things in life, but also in climbing. The grade one's interesting. I don't really understand what people think grades accomplish for them. But it's very clear that people do think grades accomplish a lot more than they actually do. But I think the point there that's very interesting is that nothing will accomplish anything for you. The way I see it is I don't want to feel accomplished. I didn't feel accomplished doing any sort of highballs. It was just like, wow, so okay, like maybe I do understand some bit of it, but also like I didn't understand another bit. And it's generally more overwhelming than it is accomplishing to finish a goal, where it's like, well, I did understand some things, but it's clear that there's more now. Like now it's clear that I should ask more questions now. And it tends to be a little bit more of a challenge and another more overwhelming thing. If you're not feeling that, I don't think you're looking for the right approach in like pushing your limits. If we're calling it pushing your limits and looking for goals, then, and if that's not the reaction, I don't think it's like in the right. I had to tell myself that, cause like, I guess there were certain points where I also was like, great. It stopped after like literally year one. Like year one, I was grade chasing. And then after I hit V10, I was like, dude, this is like not what I want anymore in climbing. I had to like go look for other things. But I think it's more about the opportunities there to see what did I do in the last however long you've been climbing or living life? What have I been doing? And what of it applied to this moment? And what of it in that moment did I choose to do and choose not to do, choose to shy away from? And if there's any of that, by the way, if there's anything that you shied away from, you're already way behind, right? Like, you shouldn't be in moments like that where you're shying away from anything. It should all be intentional. It should all be deliberate. There should be clean, unconscious decisions. There should be clean, conscious decisions, and everything should be aggressive. And everything should also be balanced and at peace, right? To be in flow. And that's what flow means. Everything should be in control, whether you chose to do it or not. And everything should be high quality.
Okay. The thing I find difficult about all this is that this is literally what I travel the world looking for, are these moments where all the things line up to have one of those experiences where I'm right at the line, but then I ended up in flow and I came out the other side and I both learned what I was capable of and saw something that I wasn't. And it often like opens up a whole new arena where you go like, wow, like I touched an area that was right at the line. I peeked over the edge and I saw a whole realm of things I don't understand, whether it's physical, mental, all of the above. And so, finding those moments, it's hard because especially when it comes to outdoor climbing, it's not manufactured. Well, some are, but let's just say it's not manufactured. and so you go to these places and you have to be open to this experience happening, and then they happen. And I wish I could reliably repeat those moments and have those tests. And it's just not exactly how life works, but it's what I chase, man. Even to this day, as I get older. Yeah.
But it's interesting. I don't think the way I would want to do it in my life and like the way I'm going to do it for the next, I don't know how many years, I only have a couple. Like I actually don't want to be exposed to all the time. And the reason why is because what I was saying, if you're actually delivering from all aspects of yourself. Let's just say there's 4 dials to pick from. And in order to actually say that you've been pushed in that potential to 100 of what you're capable of, all dials need to be pulled at 10. Well, let's just say you pick a slightly less serious goal and you realize that 2 knobs were turned to 10 and the other 2 knobs were turned to 7 and 5. Well, I would say the most important thing to do is not go to another goal that tests the 10s, but rather go to a slightly different goal that tests literally the 5. And just like, why didn't the 5 go any further past what I was trying to ask it to? Was I relying on these 2 things so much? Like, do I really not understand what this is? Did this challenge in particular not? You don't need to go outdoors to do this. You don't need to compete to do this necessarily. You don't need to, like, I find all of the knobs, and there's way more than 4 knobs, I think. When you're looking for, again, to go back to what we're talking about, when you're looking for the most potential operation and IQ ability from you as a climber, in the context of fear, in the context of mental pushing, in the context of technical and physical pushing, it's generally rare that I find enough challenges, you're correct, that satisfy asking myself if I have what it takes. But again, it's for me, at least, and I think for a lot of people, they'd be just as satisfied. Don't look for the grade. Look for the question of like, well, did I turn this knob like as much as I could have turned it? And did this grade actually satisfy that? Because another example of that is like, oh, I climbed my first V10 It's like, well, but it was just a dyno. It's like, sorry, that's cool. That's cool, bro. That's cool. But what knobs did it test? Like, did you have to test any aspect of any other part of you? Then like, is that a satisfying goal? Yeah, I think that's okay. That's the question. It's just a stress test whether these goals are actually important to you.
Yeah.
Now you're in your deathbed. All right, Josh, here are all the goals. You went out every weekend. You tested yourself on all these different challenges. I said, but did you ask yourself this question? And you're like, oh, no, I never did. Like, how would you have performed if I asked you this question? If I demanded your body to perform this, or I demanded your mind to be stressed out in this way and then perform these things, how would you have done? And if you're like, I don't know, then it's like, well, then that's what I think sport's for. That's what I actually want my sport to be for, where it's like, I want somebody to ask me all of the questions in my deathbed. And that way also, if I say, I don't know, I could say, but I tried. That's all I want to say is like, well, I tried though. Like, I actually looked for all of them. I'm not going to nail them all, but like, I want to just be able to honestly say to myself, like, I tried though. I got it. I kind of found it. Look for it.
All right, Tim, this is 2026 energy. People going out there testing themselves. It is something that I think that we've always wanted to communicate on the podcast, is going from good to great and not just focusing on grade and the journey that climbing has to offer. The one that you're choosing instead of trying to get another promotion at a desk job. I've worked a lot of desk jobs. I still basically do. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're choosing to do it. And this is why you can't always judge people from the outside. It's like, well, are they on the journey that they want to be on? It's something I always applaud you on, Tim, is that consistently in your life, you're willing to chase your goal, whoever it is, and be damned what other people say or think. And I wish I could say my motivations were always so pure, but it's something I think you do well. And again, I applaud it. I want that 2026 energy. Is just, what do you want to do? What would you regret when you were 80? Not what would people say you're going to regret. What would you regret? And then go for it. And it's a good message, man. It's good for me.
It's confusing though. I gotta say, like, if you're a younger listener who's like trying to do this and you're like wrestling with the parents, the teachers, the friends who are like, hey, what the hell are you doing? You're going to struggle here and there. They're right. Like, I'll tell you, it's not an easy thing to think in quote unquote what Josh is saying, the pure way. But if it was easy, first of all, everyone would do it. If it was just obvious that like this way is just fully rewarding, it's like, it's not rewarding. It's only rewarding in particular guidelines. And if you make your life about particular guidelines, then yes, you should, of course, honor those. But every choice that I've made in the context of some obstacle or error, those obstacles are also correct. They're like, boom, slap in the face. Hey, you're going to struggle here, Tim. Boom, slap in the face. Hey, Tim, that's going to bother you. Hey, boom, slap in the face. It's like, hey, that's going to suck. But you said you wanted what you wanted, right? It's like always testing me. It's like, but you said you wanted what you wanted, right? And so, yes, I do want it. And I'm tested all the time. But no, it's not easy.
The analogy I'm going to make here, I'm going to link it to climbing because it's something that connects to that F your feelings thing we were talking about before. Is I always feel like in my mind, I have a really loud yell and a real quiet whisper. And when it comes to the F your feelings and climbing, I get a hold wrong. And I'm just like, oh, it's bad. You're not going to do it. Jump off. This is going to blow. Get out of there. And there's a quiet voice that's like, just commit to the movement. Like, give it your best shot. You got this. Just do your best. And, and often I have enough experience in climbing. I have the technique somewhere deep inside of me, like, get those hips into the wall, turn in, just get all you can out of this hold. You may not have it perfectly, but just get all you can. I feel like it's like that in life too, where you probably do know what you want, but it might be quiet. It might be like this little voice and it's really hard to hear it. And you have a lot of things yelling at you. And the side thing to both of those that's totally required is going for it. Like, I feel like you need to try the move. You need to try having a goal and pursuing it. Like, nothing ever comes from just inaction. Like, you have to move forward. You have to move forward. And so, like you're talking about your goals or, people who are young and are trying to figure it out. And I still consider you young, Tim. It's like, who knows? Like, I don't know, but move forward. Like you need to just move forward and get that feedback, and wherever your goal is or wherever you think you're headed, it'll be different tomorrow. It'll damn sure be different in a year or 10 years,
I 100% agree with what you're saying, but I'm gonna add a little bit of a nuance to it. Because I do think that a lot of the time we get lost in maybe checking if we have what it takes, or you think if you go for it, you're like, oh, but is that correct? And a lot of the time, consistent action is the most important thing. Whether it's in something you agree with or not, a lot of the time action will just tell you. But one nuance that I'll add, where I've brought this into my coaching for myself as well, but also just my coaching platform, is people are really good at that. People who go for things are actually really good at just being like, let's just go for it. And I think those types of people that I tend to work with, it's like, okay, but make sure you ask though. The response I've gotten from most of my clients is that level of thinking, I'll get clients who've been climbing twice or 3 times as long as I have. And I'm like, very interesting. Okay, so you have a lot of like feedback that you've gotten from your body. And so it's also very clear that you're able to just be like, let's just do the thing. And I'm like, actually, what you haven't done is ask yourself the question right before you go. So you've done some of the analysis, you've done some of the check, you've done some of the mental fortitude. And then right before you go, you're like, what am I supposed to do? Right? There's that little voice, you're correct, should just be like, but let's just do it. It's like, but if it's a little bit too lackluster, a little bit too lazy, then it kind of goes into nothing. And so what's really, really important, where you're like, I'm like stuck on the move. Let's just use the climbing example. I'm stuck on the move. I know I should get that foot up. The question you should ask yourself is, but then what should I do with it? In that context, and then you go for it, you might find another answer. You might even find what you're doing wrong, right? And it's so much more important than just being like, I know I should just do the right thing. There's levels to this. And yes, that's one really important level. If you're at that point and you're a climber or you're in life where you're like, I don't know, I kind of just react. Like I just do everything, I just react. And you have that little voice and you never listen to it. Well, level 1's listen to the voice. Just like react to the voice instead of what your feelings are. But if you are listening to the voice and you're like, I know it, but I'm doing it. Like I see the voice. The next step is ask the question. And then there's always more steps to this, but I've realized that a lot of people are actually pretty good at recognizing the little voice, the whisper. That whisper is actually correct, but you haven't directed anything because you haven't asked yourself any questions. And it's a quick moment though.
Oh man, the levels, the mastery. I'm going to take the climbing analogy one step further, because this is something that happens to me on sport climbing a lot. Is I'll know the beta and I'm pumped. It's like, I got to get my foot up. I know that's the right technique, but I think I'm going to fall if I get the foot up. No, you have to commit to getting the foot up. Okay, like I'm going to stand up on the foot. You do it and you're like, but I'm so tired. And you keep doing the thing, asking yourself, what should I do? And answering it in the right way and disregarding kind of like everything that's screaming at you to make some other choice, and just kind of having that calm, like almost robotic sense of, okay, what should I do? Okay, what do I do when I do that move? And what's next? And just kind of being able to operate on that. And maybe that's not exactly what you're saying, but that's how I intuit it in my climbing,
Yeah, that's a super important, I think, way to iterate it for people to understand, is that you're talking about a system rather than just the rep or the understanding. It's like, did I go through all of the steps? That's like the most important thing.
Quick break while I tell you about today's sponsor. Thank you to all the patrons who help make this show possible. Join them so you can get episodes early before anyone else, and those episodes are ad-free. As a patron, you also get to submit questions for upcoming guests. The answers to those questions are only available to patrons. Follow the link in the show notes to join now. You also get access to a private Discord where you'll find me and other people who want to go from good to great. Okay, back to the pod.
Oh my God, Tim, philosophy, 101, 102, 103, graduate level climbing philosophy. But that's just us, dude. And it's too fun because we can just go down this rabbit hole for podcast after podcast after podcast, because that's what we have. And we will continue to. I still want to highlight this badass V14 FA borrowed time. Am I right on that? That's the name. And maybe we can transition some of our philosophy talks into some more tactical things that you did, because this was a hard project. I mean, it's a V14. It's the low start to an existing highball, solid highball V10 in Tahoe. And, you had some crunch time there. I think there's a reason why it's called borrowed time. But yeah, just tell me about this amazing, I mean, it's gotta be your best FA. I would think coolest FA.
Yeah, I haven't even done that many. So definitely like it would be a while before I feel like I topped that experience. But yeah, it was a whole experience for sure. It wasn't just a hard climb. It was a hard climb in a new area, working with some of the best boulders around.
Shout them out.
Yeah, I was basically back and forth on sessions with Carlo Traversi on it. Well, I'll just start off by saying the short film that we're working on for it should be out within the next couple of weeks. I don't know when this is going to air, but it should be out very soon.
Oh, nice. I didn't even know that. Awesome, dude.
Yeah. It should feature on Mellow, which is also really cool. That'll be my first Mellow feature, which is dope. And I got to go on this trip to Tahoe. It was all kind of in the context of doing an athlete summit, which is a big hangout that Black Diamond does with not just the climbing team, but all of the global team members, but also, as many of them as can come. They're all invited, I believe. And then, there's some people who are maybe future ambassadors, current ambassadors, future global athletes. There's a bunch of athletes. There was like 30 of us there. There's also a bunch of R&D team members who are working on products. We're talking about how to get better feedback. We're going out and, putting action on new products, just getting feedback on products we've been using for a while. So it's a whole like summit just to like get people together. The plan for me was to kind of see where I was at. I was like just getting back into harder training, and I'd never climbed in South Lake. So I didn't go to a new area to like try a project. I had a bunch of things in mind to try. Tried none of them because I got stuck on this project. But one of the first days we decided as a whole group for the BD team to go to Lost World. Carlo brought some of the stronger boulders from the warm-up area. A lot of the runners went off and went somewhere else. BD has like a bunch of different types of athletes: ice climbers, runners, mountaineers, mountain guides. So a bunch of other people went to different areas, and then Carlo took like me, Seb, Ethan Salvo, Connor, Jacopo, like super strong climbers. But these are just the BD team athletes. We went to Code Black, which is on the Mud Falcon boulder. So this is like, we walked by Demon on a Leash, we walked by the Ill Cave, and then you pop up to the Mud Falcon boulder. So Flight the Mud Falcon is like one of the best V8s in South Lake area. Starts on this very obvious jug. Well, first of all, we showed up and it was like this big egg-shaped boulder, like kind of like a bishop. Like
it's big. It's big,
dark,
dude.
gray. It's huge. It's like I'm like, damn, this is like, I feel like I'm in a mini bishop here. But it's like an egg feature. So, there's going to be a bunch of lines on the bottom. And I was like, what is this? Like, this is sick. I instantly got psyched, as I do on the taller ones.
Well, and let me just set the context. When you walk up to this boulder, you're kind of like hiking uphill. It's big. And right as you hike in Code Black, the V10, that's the stand start, or does it start off that block? Does it start off a block? Starts off a block. That's kind of obvious right there. And it goes right up the kind of open middle as you're walking. It's just one of those things that like, you're like, oh, right there, right up the gut is that Code Black V10, which then, you put below start too.
Yeah. And there are multiple lines on this climb, but you're correct. Like right when you pull up to the boulder, you're like right up the middle of the whole main line of the face is already an established V10. Jimmy Webb put this up a couple years back, and it starts pretty high up on the climb. Like, yeah, you got to get up onto this boulder, onto this rock that used to be a larger rock. I'll just stop there. You climb up to this rock and you grab these star holds that are like pretty high up, and then you do one large jump move. You get to this like pretty nice rail feature, and then you do one really, really hard crux heel hook lock off on this horrible slopey crimp. And you do like a pretty scary reach over. The quality of the move is like what makes it scary. It's like more tons of tension on a heel. I don't really like heel hooking crimps, and you heel hooking like a 20 mil edge, which is pretty good, but like I don't like heel hooking flat edges, feels like my heel's just going to roll off. And the other hand that you're on feels like it's actually sliding off the entire time. But for whatever reason, you pull in really tight to the wall and you reach as far as you can, you're on the next hold. And then you do like 20 more feet of like V1 to V3 climbing. Some people say it's harder, but just for me, I don't think that stuff's actually that hard in technical requirement. It just feels harder. Like we should try to sandbag people who like go up to these things because they should be that ready is what we're saying. But the actual boulder itself is probably like V1 moves.
Again, doing V1 friction smears when you're 30 feet off the deck versus 3 feet off the deck. Very different thing as we talked about for an hour before. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So we show up. I'm like, oh, dude, we got to do this code black thing. Carlo just runs up it like super easily. He said the first time he did it, he had literally one Mondo pad. I'm like, you maniac. What do you, like, I'm kind of a maniac. People definitely make fun of me for not padding up stuff enough, but like Carlo is like a next level maniac. He'll do lots of boulders with just one pad. Like he's that guy. He's mastery. Like he just knows what he's capable of and just goes for it. He's badass. But anyway, he does it pretty quickly. I do it after. Like, it took me like 3 tries, I think. But the jump was hard. Like, it's very weird. Like, slopey left-hand crimp, 8-9 millimeter underclean crimp, not in cut. And then the feet are like way too high for someone my size. I'm 5'11" with +1 and like just felt super scrunchy. And then you jump like backwards because of what the feet are doing. And then you snatch this very good edge. And so it just took a while to learn it. It was really humid that day. So we were like all felt kind of whack. And then like basically nobody else was sticking this jump move except Sean Rabitou was also there. He found a different way to do the jump. He did not want to do the highball part, which is kind of hilarious seeing like literally one of the strongest boulders in the world, like not want to do this highball that, you know, some of us think are like pretty easy. We're like, Sean, just like, you can do this blindfolded. Like just go and do it. That was kind of funny. And then Ethan also he got to the lock off move, bailed, and then we like sat around for a while and then we kind of egged him on. The whole group egged him on to do it, got on the rope, and then he did it. So it was like a whole thing just to do this V10. And like kind of during that time, you know, we see all this obvious crimp rails lead up to Code Black. And we're like, is this a prod? Like, what's going on here? Carlos like, yeah, this has been a project for a while. One of the locals, Roman, has been trying it for a long time. It got really close, but he kind of stopped working on it. And so, you know, there's a little bit of ethic of like, is it cool if we just rage on it if someone's like close to doing it? And it turned out it was like totally cool, but none of us were even remotely close. Like that first day, I think nobody linked more than like 3 moves at a time. And just for reference, it's about 10 moves. I think it's 10 moves exactly to get to Code Black from the Mud Falcon jug. And we were also curious. Like, I think there are some sessions where they're working on it from like a slightly closer jug because there are just like pretty good holds at the very start of it. But we just decided like, oh, it'd be nice to just start on the most obvious jug that already has 2 boulders coming out of it. So if you start on that jug and you go left, it's a V8 called Fly the Mud Falcon. If you go straight up, it's a V12 called Quadrilateral, which doesn't get done very often. It's also pretty scary. And then if you go right, you go on, I would say, a very long set of V12 crimping with a lot of like technical foot beta. And then the very end of this V12 section is the hardest bit to get into Code Black. And then for whatever reason, the jump on Code Black it feels impossible like every time you get there. And yeah, I didn't even try those links. Like it was way too hard to do those moves, especially humid and like pretty tired. And then, we left that day, did the rest of the summit, and I stuck around. Only a couple of us after the summit stuck around. The girl I'm dating now, Claire, she would come up on like day trips and we would just go to a new area. And that was really fun. It would just like kind of separate me off of this project. And then basically every other day that somebody like Claire or another friend wasn't there, I was just straight back to Lost World. And yeah, I had, you'll see it in the video, but I had like a compilation of just a fall fest. Basically, after my 3rd session, I basically stopped falling on any of the other moves other than the Code Black jump. And so I think I had probably close to 50 attempts just from the start hold all the way to the jump. Dude. And yeah, over 11 sessions in my month and a half. And to what you were bringing up earlier, I thought I had another like 3 weeks around in California. Oh, I did. I had planned to stay in California another 3 weeks. The weather was looking like the temperature would be really nice, of course. But, you know, Tahoe is a snow area and it wasn't snowing. It was like too warm. So it was going to rain quite a bit. And we already had an episode of snow where like it was interesting. Like, because it's a very friction dependent climb, a lot of what we were dealing with was it would snow. And because that whole boulder like covers that area in the shade, even for a couple of days after it was quote unquote dry, it felt like the snow would melt and just evaporate onto the wall. And even if it said it was a really dry day, like the humidity would say 30%, it felt horrible. Like I would have some days where like just certain sections would feel impossible. And somehow my links were really good. Like I would still get to the end of the V12 climbing and get to the jump, but I couldn't even like move, or I would like jump, try really hard jump and just dry fire, back splat, and just be like, oh my, like I'm just getting hammered on this climb. And then Jimmy came back from, I think he was traveling a lot. Jimmy Webb, he lives in South Lake. And he came and started trying this thing. He left it alone to let Roman have it as a project, is what I think the story is. And Jimmy was like finally psyched. So he started trying it with us. And I just felt a ton of pressure because I was like, I mean, I kind of feel very close to doing it, but now like these guys are absolutely capable of just doing this climb any day. And for a little while I was staying camping or staying at Brennan's family has a cabin in Truckee, but that's a 2-hour commute. And I was like staying in their cabin and they weren't charging me much in utilities. So I just kind of felt bad. And driving 2 hours back and forth is not that much better than driving like a little more than 3 hours back and forth from the South Bay where my mom lives in Mountain View. So I just decided to go and day trip like every session that I wanted to go and try it. And I think I had like 5 or 6 day trips in a row where I was getting really, really close. And I saw weather finally creep in on the forecast. And I was like, oh man, like there's like 3 or 4 days of blizzard coming in. And given that we already had to stop climbing on it for a couple of days when there was 1 day of a little bit of snow, I think we kind of all knew that this was going to be the last day for the season, at least for a while, to try it. And my trip was coming to a close. I think when I saw the weather window, I saw like a session and a half that I could go onto it. My skin was just absolutely destroyed. I decided to have like a super long session on it. The session before I actually did it, I forgot my shoes. I forgot my entire climbing backpack. It's like, I've never done this before.
Pro tip, bring your gear.
Well, it was crazy because like my mom came back from a Korea trip and she was only around for like a day while I was there. And she was like, oh, let's go climbing at the gym. So we go climbing at the gym and we take her car. And I like always leave my stuff in my car. And we took her car and I just left my stuff with her. And I was like, oh, dude, I didn't grab my backpack. And I didn't have a chalk bag. I didn't have any chalk. And, you know, obviously, by the way, like when you're trying hard climbs for a while that have a lot of footwork, you end up realizing like some shoes don't work and some shoes really do work. And so I didn't have the shoes that I wanted, which was a right Andra Comp and a left Theory. Just felt like softer and I needed a really good toe hook for the super hard toe hook. And I had Solution Comps, which are much stiffer and like don't have a really solid toe hook. Anyway, I ended up climbing on it for 6 hours. Luckily some people were there and they gave me some chalk. And then Jimmy came like 4 hours into my sesh and he let me use all his chalk, but it started getting really humid. And I tried it for 6 hours that day and I gave it 8 solid rips in a row from the start to the last move. Was totally destroyed. And we were just talking about the weather. And I had other plans in a couple of days. So there were 3 days before the weather came in and Jimmy was like, you know, sometimes though, when weather comes in that day, you can climb that day. And I was like, yeah, but if I don't do that, I won't be back here until like the spring. And I didn't really want to wait there. And he's like, yeah, you could come tomorrow. Like you could come any of these days. We were just talking about it a lot. And he was like giving me a lot of insight, which is really helpful. And then I went to bed that night and slept like 3 hours. I got up at like 5 and I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do it today.
Wow.
And just decided to go and do it. And yeah, luckily my friend Vincent, who was filming, he filmed probably half the days that I was there. And he really wanted to work on like a highball film with me. He wanted to work on an FA film with me. He wanted to work on something in Tahoe. He just happened to be there filming all this stuff. And he happened to be coming back from Joe's trip like that day. And I was like, you want to go? And he's like, I'm there. So we just drove together. I had probably 3 tries left on my skin. And first try was really good, super close. I was exhausted. Like my back was dying. Everything was dying. Second try was even better. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I felt my skin. I felt like my tips were so thin. I was just going to, these rocks pretty sharp, surprisingly. And I just felt like my next try would just tear. But I was like, all right, this is all I need. And I learned like I would just have much, much, much longer rests and cool my skin down to dry it. And hopefully by the time I got to the end, I wasn't sweating. And yeah, I just pulled on. And then it was weird, dude. Like I felt like I had gotten used to falling on the jump and was expecting that. I'd pull on and just expect to get there and fall on the jump. And that try, I stuck it and just was like, it just let out a scream. I was like, ah, what? And then like freaked out, took some breathing, got to the lock off. I was like, this is still a really hard move. I kind of messed up the heel placement, so I felt like it was going to pop, but I was like, I'm already up here and I'm not going to down climb this move. My hands were completely numb. Did the lock off and grabbed that hole, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like stuck. And then I had to like fight the foot up and then finish it off. And I was like, wow, what a complete, complete experience. Like it felt hard, it felt like a fight. It felt like there was pressure. Like it wasn't just an easy project send. So yeah, it was pretty nice.
And then you established one of the coolest hard boulders in Tahoe. Dude, okay, you know how you're doing that thing where what if someone, opened up a briefcase of $100 million? Like, how would you try right now? So like when I hear this story, and I actually have like a surprisingly similar story, not as cool of what happened to me like a couple months ago, where literally I had like 3 tries and the last try I sent. So I sent, you sent, weather was coming in. And it makes me think that a big reason why you sent was because of that pressure. And you said that you had kind of like built this thing in, I fall at the jump. That's right. And there's like a mental component. And just, do you think it was like the pressure that all of a sudden snapped you into doing the move? Was it like a mindset change, or just like help me unpack like why it did work out? Like why did it work out right then instead of the day before? Like, was it really just luck, or do you think there was something that organized and made it so that you were able to send in that moment when it was, the 11th hour?
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. I mean, I was thinking about this quite a bit as, I would say in the last 3 sessions. I would say before the last 3 sessions, it was possible I sent this climb, but if it happened, that would have been pretty lucky. And after that, I had way more control into the aspects that would have given me a send. And I started thinking about those way more towards the last 3 sessions. And I would say what's interesting is a function of me understanding more aspects of my control, trying them, putting effort into them, as much effort as I could, then failing, crept a lot more frustration and a lot more just like straight anger. And so then I had to step away and have another process of just like meditating, enjoying the presence of being there. And it became a totally different battle. So what I would say is after I understood more aspects of a try in a vacuum, where I didn't care about the time, I didn't care about those things. Well, the actual dynamics of the move, the timing of the move, the efficiency, the intricacies of the beta, like cleaning up the beta even more, cleaning up skin tactics, all that stuff in a vacuum got basically as good as it could by my 8th session. And then after that, though, because those were so unlocked, it just became another psychological battle. And it took me until the last day, I think, really, to let go of all those things to the point where I could go back to that first thing on the 8th session. So does that make sense? Like I knew exactly what I was supposed to do, but like other things got in the way. And I just had to like take another 2 sessions, I think, to like, I mostly just realized that. Like, I think a lot of time you assume you figure this stuff out over years and you're like, I've had moments where I break through my psychological warfare, but then like, it's like, it's not automatic. Like I actually have to sit there and be like, what do I want out of this? Like, what do I think is going to happen after this happens? Like, why am I frustrated again? And like, well, simply it is frustrating. I think it was like the first thing that happened to me where I was like, maybe I'm just like trying to justify driving back and forth 3 hours there, 3 hours back, sit there, warm up, try it 3 times, and then like get too tired. And like the weather, I can't control that. So it's just like sifting through all of the things that I actually am uncomfortable about. And then getting to a place where it's like, well, but what can I do about it? And like, what actually are the things? And then once I realize what I can do about it, what am I doing about that? Like, am I actually putting in the effort there again, over and over again? Do I believe every time? Do I want it every time the same way? It's just a lot of questions, like sifting through the things that matter and don't, things you can control and don't. And then by the last try, I think I told Vincent when I was there, I was like, these 3 tries were the only tries so far. I actually looked ahead, like you actually start on the jug and you look to the right and you see every single move. And I was like, I would look ahead and sequence everything a little bit. And usually until that session, I'd feel a little bit of nervousness or like excitement, and then I'd sweat. I'd just like think about it and be like, oh, but remember when you get there, try a little bit harder here. And I just sweat and I pull on and like get a little bit moist. And that last session, I would like look at the jug and be like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I didn't sweat. And so I think maybe to give a 1-sentence thing for that last session, like I just felt more confident that it was going to happen. And it didn't matter whether it happened or not anymore.
Do you think these long projecting processes that you go through, because I mean, you're not like an insane projector, but you do project, how crucial do you think that is for your development as a climber? And is there anything else at this point in your career that can develop you as a climber like that?
That's a good question. Honestly, some of it's diminishing returns. Like my body was taking quite a bit of a toll during that process. And so it depends on the low-hanging fruit. Like I would say you should always be challenged and like always be having to take the challenge the best way and go through that process if you don't have low-hanging fruit. And the ideal is that you're working physically on your body and physically on your technique all of the time, and then just like get exposure to do a project. And during that time, you've already worked on yourself. You've done your peaking, you've done your deload. So you're actually like taking care of your body. You do some body care. You ideally do everything to take care of your physical self. And then you go into that mental moment. Another way to think about that, to answer your question, is could I have just done it earlier? Like, could I have just sent the climb way earlier? And yeah, of course I could have if I knew exactly how to work my mind and all those things. And like that takes practice, just like the physical. It just takes reps to like get stronger, right? It just takes this, technical practice to like understand my technique better and like teach my body more, right? It just takes practice and reps. And so just like the mental side, it just takes more reps. So yes, I do want more reps, but that stuff to me right now, in my understanding with the experiences that I've had in projecting, it takes more experimentation to work the mental side, to see what works and doesn't work. It takes time off to like analyze it, at least at my level, I think is what's going on. And it takes a toll on the body. Like it costs, it's like a huge sacrifice to experiment that. And so I'm not sure. Like I definitely am going to. And it's, by the way, it's the same thing with competing. Like it's not just a moment to execute. It's an opportunity to try, which takes experimentation. And ideally, you use your logic and your experience to experiment in a way that's going to give you good outcomes and pretty much only good outcomes, but it's still experimenting. It's not like, oh, you're 100% sure at any given point. It's always a new moment, right? It's like, that's the point of comps. So this year I'm going to compete and try some other projects. Like in Colorado, kind of briefly mentioned it, but while I'm there, I'm going to have some opportunity to try some local challenges. Recently I've been pretty psyched on, Paul Robinson's there and he's like always psyched and he's really strong right now. So he's like always trying to hit me up. He's like, yo, let's go try this. And I'm like, I don't even know what this climb is. So for me, it's always been pretty hard to like fully get psyched on something that I didn't even know about, versus something that I'm like historically been pretty psyched on, wanted to see if I wanted to test myself on it. And the 2 climbs that I really want to try, if they're available, are Mirror Reality and Paint It Black.
Nice.
And so I'll probably try and go and check this out, but they're a little bit far. And the other thing, the last thing there is, again, diminishing returns. If I go and try those things, I'm not training. And I recently joined the Lab, which is like a board only, membership only gym in Boulder.
Awesome.
And I live in Golden. So it's like a 40-minute commute. And it was a big choice for me to be like, all right, do I want to pay the same membership to have access to 7 movements? Or do I want to pay the same membership to have one 24-hour facility 40 minutes away? And we know what I picked. I picked the board. And I've been going there quite a bit. And it's been phenomenal for my physical body, my technical body. But yeah, I'm aching going back and just like getting some discomfort tolerance, decision making, and like the whole mental battle again for sure.
Paint It Black +1 on that. I've been out to that and I think you would do well on it. And it's really cool. I think it's climbable for a good chunk of the year too. Like I feel like people are always cleaning that off. It just looked like, for me, a lot of Colorado stuff isn't as striking, and Paint Black is one of the, I mean, it's not insane. It's no Bishop Highball, but it's a cool line. And that'd be my vote. And it's just interesting to hear you talk about your whole projecting process, hear about the skin management, hear about like the mental side of things. It's something that I'm trying to do a little bit more of, is projecting, because, you just keep peeling off these layers. Like you said something about how each time you project, it's not like you don't still go through the mental battle. You're not like, oh, I've been here before, I need to shift my mindset now into this mode. It's still just like, this big learning process. And so I don't know. I enjoyed hearing that. And it sounded like so many things surfaced as you described it all. And you described every little thing, and the shoes and the skin and dealing with weather and temps, and then the mental approach. Like, it just sounded to me like, wow, you learned a lot. So I couldn't help ask, like, is that the secret? And I'll do more projecting now that I am local to a place. It's hard to project when if you live in the Bay, like, stuff is far. If you live in Colorado, it's a lot easier. And I think that's something that is a little secret of people who live in the Front Range and stuff, is there's a lot of boulders. There's a lot of hard boulders, and they are typically pretty close. And, there's a little secret for getting strong, is be around hard climbs that you want to do. That's an obvious, of course, one, but
yeah. But some people seem to have, just on that note, like, I definitely haven't figured it out. Like, it's very difficult to balance the curriculum of training, like kind of what I was talking about before. Like, people there seem dialed on like when they're trying their rigs and when they're in the gym. And some people are like in the gym after they've tried their rig. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, if I go out and try a project, I'm just so used to being like on a trip or need to make the most out of that session. And so there's definitely a bunch of layers of tactics that I really don't understand yet, that I have to experiment with, where it's like, yeah, maybe I just go and try for 30 minutes and then just drive to the gym. Like, that's the sacrifice I have to make the most out of my little journey. But again, curriculum takes physical toll. And my body is like, I've really only been back climbing seriously for like 5 months. And that's like barely a training cycle. So my body feels like it's falling apart right now. So mostly it's just like, don't get hurt.
Don't get hurt.
My number one motto is just like, don't get hurt.
Don't get hurt.
Everything else, I'll grow. Like, everything else, I'll ask myself the questions, but like, do not get hurt.
Do not get hurt.
Do not get hurt.
Okay, Tim, I feel like this whole podcast has in some ways been about this, but I do want to ask you a little bit about coaching. Dude, we started out the pod. And when I say start out the pod, I mean literally Testpiece podcast as a whole, with you doing more coaching. It was kind of COVID times, so there was more online and remote coaching. Then you basically worked a full-time desk job, less coaching, although I think you may have had a client or two throughout that whole time. And now you are potentially doing more coaching. Tell me a little bit about it. Tell me how you've evolved over the years. And, I mean, your climbing has changed a lot over, God, I don't even know how long Testpiece has been going on, but 3 years, 4 years, I don't know. So what's different now? Like, why are you psyched again? And is there any different approach with clients these days?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you letting me use this platform to boost my coaching.
Total ad, but it's not advertisement. No, I just love you, Tim, and I love what you bring to the table. And so, of course, if you want to work with Tim, where do you go, Tim?
Yeah. Well, my website's just timkangcoaching.com. Check it out. It's a very simple platform. Goes into a little bit of my coaching philosophies there if you want to read about it. But the gist of it is, well, I guess to answer your question, what's different nowadays than my previous coaching, if you've worked with me, is that I feel like I just understand a bit better more of what I want in explaining concepts and, how to actually work with clients for the better use of your time and money, versus just like, I kind of felt confident that if you just stuck with me for an hour in the gym or something, I could help you. But nowadays it's like it's more streamlined for like, this is what I think is very helpful for you. And like, we'll just get you that. And just to dig into that a little bit more, I don't offer training plans. I offer just, if you want to spend the time asking me questions, like, of course it's helpful, but I don't believe those types of things need to be fully optimized to get more out of each attempt or more of your understanding in climbing. And I do think that that's the low-hanging fruit for the vast majority of people. Training in general is a necessity. You should absolutely train. You should take care of your body. You should grow. You should, make sure that you're robust enough to handle what climbing asks of us on the wall so that you don't hurt yourself. And you should take care of yourself there. But like, you don't really need me to do that. And you don't want climbing coaches to do that. I think climbing coaches have just experimented so much that we can give you that information, but get it from a strength coach or Google, just understand a bit more about timing and periodization and intensities intervals. And honestly, if you think about it this way, if you just did 20 pull-ups and 20 push-ups a day and you really worked hard at that every day, you'd probably get stronger. And so if you're not doing at least that, then don't get a training plan. It's useless at that point. If you're not already doing some sort of, if you're doing a bunch and you're like, I don't really know how this works, then you can book a session with me and bring it up and I'll probably guide you there. But that's so much better usage of your time versus I've never done a workout before. Can you give me a plan? I'm like, well, that plan's it's so catered to, already something that you're doing. And so what I work on beyond that is looking at your habits, looking at your choices and trying to understand whether those choices actually apply to a better attempt. And then we spend time on IQ, which is, do you know what a better attempt is? Do you actually know what applies to a better attempt? What applies to better movement? And we use video analysis. We just look at your attempts together. We look at, why should we try an easier climb? Should we take a fall? Well, then when you do fall, what actually applied? And most of the time people just don't understand these things. After you have an attempt, I have the video in my hands. I ask you what you think happened. Nobody nails these things. Nobody does. I don't even nail these things when I watch myself, and I practice for years. And so having somebody else there who's just experienced in looking at these things, breaking them down for you, and then give you language that you can start to label these concepts yourself, that gives you a little bit more hand on, the control panel on what you should adjust. And then if you work with me longer term, then you have the ability to come up with more drills to practice. I just like bringing the word in practice into the sessions. We don't often look at climbing sessions and think, I should practice this thing. But if you've labeled a concept, okay, if you've identified something as to why you're falling and you've labeled a concept around it and, you realize that you don't consistently work on these things, then you can develop drills around that. But if you're just developing drills just to do drills, may help you, may not. I try to reference concepts that we actually believe apply to falling, sticking moves, success, mistakes, just try to make it explainable for ourselves. Right now, I'm not exactly sure what my bandwidth is going to look like, but I know I'm going to offer one-off sessions. I really want to offer one-off sessions, and I want to sell that the most as much as possible, because I think a lot of people have worked with me and realized that they just need to work with me for an hour and a half, and they just want to go off on their own and explore these things for themselves and then maybe come back. And you do get a discount the next time you come back. If you want to work with me for 4 weeks and commit to that for a 2-month period, you can purchase that package. I haven't made that available yet, but I think by the time this airs, I'll try to make that available.
So something that you said that I just want to highlight that I think is really important is you said that when you have video in hand and you look over it with someone, they often don't get it right. And you said you even don't get it right. And I just want to be clear that I believe what you're talking about is that we often think we know why we fell. And ideally, the better you are as a climber, the more you've been doing it, you should know why you fell. But we often don't. And people will say, oh, my hand popped. It was no, your foot popped. And that made your hand pop. And it's entirely different. And the video analysis from an expert alongside me, is so freaking helpful. And I also think it's good to review your own video because, you start kind of getting a little understanding about what's going on, at least being able to be honest with yourself and say, I thought it was this, but it was that. And that may not help you answer the question as to why that failed or why it didn't go well, but at least you can kind of not be fooling yourself, because it's so easy to fool yourself. And we've talked about this quite a bit. It blows my mind how many times I've seen people fall. Honestly, it's sometimes just fear. I remember seeing, it really stuck out in my head where I saw a buddy, he jumped off. And when I asked him why he fell, he told me his foot blew. I can't remember what he told me, but whatever he told me was wrong. And I could say it was a lie. But the reason why I hesitate to say that is because he believed it. It's just having someone like you, Tim, say this is what happened and this is why it happened. And here's a drill we're going to work on is probably the only way to really get better at these things. And it's why I encourage people to climb with groups of friends and talk beta, call each other out, not even call each other out. Just that's why we would have a good session. It's like, oh, I think your foot blew because you stepped on it right here and the spike is actually just a millimeter to the left. And I saw you just skitter off. You go, oh, that's why. Okay, I'll try it next time.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to reiterate something that you're saying, like, I don't just video analyze. Like, I use your video analysis first to understand what I think actually happened, determine likelihoods. So like, sometimes you're right. It's just such an underlying layer of like, well, you didn't even think about the general approach of like solving this move. You didn't even commit to being in that moment. Like, you didn't commit to effort. There's a million different reasons why it could have happened. And so it's really that step, which is like, do you know what you were supposed to do? And did you actually make a choice around it? And then we use your video analysis to say like, well, if you know what you're supposed to do and you did make a choice around it, like what actually happened when you make a choice? And so sometimes we don't even get to that third layer. Sometimes we don't get to that second layer. Sometimes just the first layer, and like having somebody understand that there are layers to this and understand which layers happen to give you the best ROI. That's what I do as a coach. Not everybody's very good at that. Some people can do it themselves and like not be able to articulate it. But if you've ever listened to the Testpiece pod, like with me on it, like that's all I do. And so now I offer a way to just interact with it yourself and go book a sesh.
Okay, Tim, can I spray about a climb I did with some video analysis that also mirrored your whole thing with borrowed time? So I had this climb that I was going out to once a week. It's called Balls to the Wall. And I was going by myself. I got to go like 3 times in the middle of the week, was out there and got really close. Thought I was going to do it, but then like my last go, my hand, like I thought I was doing it. My hand popped off of like a jug and I just couldn't believe that's how I fell. But then I was like, well, weather's coming. I'm done for the season. So similar to you. And then 2 days later, I'm like, even though weather's coming in today and my skin is wrecked, I'm just going to go out there. And I had 3 goes because I had a meeting at 2. I had like a short window. I just was like, dude, I need to hustle. I like hiked out there. First go, fall off of kind of like the last hard move, wreck my skin. Second go, I'm like, oh, dude, I got to do this. Like rested for a long time. My feet cut. Somehow I still hold it like way harder than normal thing. I do the climb, but I fucking dabbed. And I'm like, okay, you got one more go. And then it's like done for the season and just executed perfectly. Really psyched. Kind of just like cool to have that similar thing. And also I kind of like had let go of expectations in a way. Cause I was like, dude, I like, clearly I can do the problem. Like even when I dabbed, it was harder. Like I swung, it was much harder. I can't believe I even did it. Anyways, the spray that I wanted to say now after being like, look, I did my climb was the video analysis part. So the kind of crux, or what I would say the crux is like the second move. You make a big move out left to a left-hand crimp, and then you hand foot heel and you make a big move to a good hold. I had like done the move before, like from that move, kind of starting there, but I just like couldn't do it from the beginning. And first, like my heel kept popping. I was like watching the video. I was like, oh, I need to slide my heel up a little bit. So I like adjusted. Yeah, that's one layer. Okay, great. Like the heel's staying. And then like I just still couldn't do it from the ground. And I just watched the video of the one time I did the move over and over and over again. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And I look and when I pulled on from that move, my left hip, so it's a right heel, my left hip was just like a touch more open. Like it wasn't much, but just like I could see where my knee was pointed. So then I try that move and just like consciously, because you have to walk your feet over to get the heel. And then I set the heel and then I let that knee, the non-heel knee, like open up. Sure enough, I don't know if I fell in that move again. Like, but it's just like those layers of like, what is going on here? And then, okay, that's what happened. Okay, I can repeat it. And then also just, what an expert can do. And I guess I'm calling myself an expert here, but like for this move is why did that work? Like, why does that work? And it's because when you open up like that, you basically weight the heel more, right? Like if you're twisted in, it doesn't let your hips sink in close to the wall. So my heel was more likely to blow. And just, I don't know, I just love the layers of this stuff and like understanding what happened, then repeating it and then asking why that even works in the first place. So then ideally when you encounter that problem, you have like one more answer to the question, why is my heel picking?
Like, why on this move? And so I just thought you would appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that. Yeah. I think that's dope. Yeah, that climb is also I did that climb on part of my trip, and it was surprisingly straightforward, but also like the technique required so much care. And so I really liked that video analysis. I kind of had to do that too because it was like slick. Like even though it was like straightforward compression and the heels were like big, it was like you also have to go really fast because these moves are like really snappy, and the handholds are like pretty good, but they're far away. And so you have to be very careful about the technical implementation. And I would just say like most of the time, if you have to be careful about something, we are just not. Like as humans, it's very rare you know exactly what you're supposed to do for one, and why those things may cause success or failure. And then if you're actually careful or not. So it just takes care and it takes that analysis, but let me do it for you.
Oh, good one. Go to timkangcoaching.com. Wait, what was it? timkangcoaching.com?
timkangcoaching.com.
I think we still have a coaching page up on testpiececlimbing.com too. So if you reach out to Tim on Instagram, reach out to me, we'll put you in touch either way. And also listen to all the past pods we did with Tim to get a better idea too, because if you hear Tim over the years and you're psyched on him, well, now you can work with him directly, and you'd be lucky to. Hopefully I know you're busy. You never have very many spots, but it is cool when you get to work with someone over the long term too, because I get to hear from you like the success you see in your clients, and I don't know, just that relationship you build. Although I know, just to flag this, that you really don't like when coaches like give themselves accolades for their client's success. That was always a pet peeve of yours when you would see coaches kind of say, oh, their success is because of my coaching. And so that's not Tim.
Yeah.
Just committed to the success and working with people.
Yeah. And I get it, but no, we're all in this journey together. And the way I see it is I'm a researcher and I'm an experimenter, and I'm sharing my ways to research better. And I like the way that I do it, and it works. And so if you want the way I do it, and if you want it to try to work for you, try it. I'll share it with you. If you seem to grow a ton, like that's you. You've just gotten informed. And I've done the same thing in a lot of different places in life. And if somebody was like, oh, Tim is growing so much in life because of me, it's like, I don't know, that's just not true. Like I'm just doing my way with new information, right?
Yeah, I do encourage people to just be out there on that journey. Like listen to podcasts, watch YouTubes, get coaches. Like you're still your own athlete, and you have to find your way. And, you know, this is why sometimes hearing the same thing from different sources, one of them finally clicks. And, you know, it's why I think I am that kind of climber we talked about earlier, where I just consume everything. And, it's because finally something that maybe I've heard a million times, but somehow it just resonates with me, and, unlock the next level. So,
yeah.
Okay, Tim, I got even more questions for you. This is the bonus area where we've got some good questions from our patrons, because, dude, they love you, Tim, my dude. If you want to hear that Q&A and other extra behind-the-scenes content from this episode and others, head over to patreon.com/testpiece to sign up now. Patrons also get their episodes early and ad-free. There's hours and hours of bonus content there to help you on your own path of going from good to great. Still not sure? There's a free 7-day trial for you to check it out. And to help the show grow, please share this episode with someone who would love it. Okay, see you next week.